Before I talk about my favorite animated shows of 2024, I might as well make a video on my honorable mentions that didn't make the cut. And by honorable mentions, I mean every show that I gave a 5 out of 10 and above to. Hazbin Hotel was by far the most popular show of the year alongside Arcane and Dandadan, and honestly, it was pretty good. As per usual, a series from SpindleHorse is visually beautiful, but it is also littered with its own narrative and character problems, namely a glaring issue with pacing where we move to the finale a little too fast. And said finale does give some pause as to what a second season would look like, since it feels like Viv wrote the show into a corner with just enough loose ends tied up to comfortably not go anywhere, but also just enough questions to make the audience go, that can't be it. But one thing about Hazbin that is absolutely fantastic is the music. Loser Baby is probably my favorite out of the soundtrack. And speaking of SpindleHorse, Helluva Boss had 5 episodes this year, and in general, I greatly prefer Helluva over Hazbin, mainly because it's a bit more centered around interpersonal relationships between characters and not a grand overall story. Still not necessarily my favorite of the year. Murder Drones was another ultra popular web series of the year, which I have already made an entire video on. I do appreciate the responses I got to the video, at least the sane ones that understood where I was coming from. I still stand by everything I said though, especially in regards to how genuinely bad the dialogue is. Smiling Friends had a second season this year, and I had a lot of fun with it. I love that Alan had more of a presence this time around, especially with his own episode. I do think, however, that while its highlights were higher than Season 1's, its weaker episodes did feel somewhat weaker than Season 1's lowest. Inanimate Insanity had its Season 2 and Season 3 finales this year, and I have mixed feelings on both of them. I feel like Season 3's finale was a tonal letdown in comparison to the fantastic episodes before it, though Cabby definitely deserved that win. Episodes 15 and 16 of Season 2 were absolutely phenomenal before the tension kind of deflated with the final 2 episodes. I really don't like how they handled Toilet. I wish Cobbs had more to do than just swing a sword around. And the empty sound design really doesn't help the tension at all. But part of me still feels sentimental about a series I grew up with finally coming to an end. Probably. In terms of web series, however, I wish more people checked out Kirby Guardian, one of the cutest things I have ever seen. Pieces of Powder is also another one, though only its pilot came out this year. A story about Powder and Marcy, who have to navigate through their awkward new friendship, along with their own issues of anxiety and self-loathing. And while there were moments where the subtext is kind of in your face, there were other moments that spoke very directly to me. And to speedrun through 2 shows that were just okay, Iwaju and Knuckles were certainly okay. Iwaju has a sense of earnestness and passion behind it that really wants to say something about inequality and the class divide, though I wish it wasn't told with such a dumb story where the characters are kind of boring and stupid. And Knuckles is just a straight up lie. It is actually not about Knuckles, it's about Wade and his bowling stuff, so at least it's kind of funny and charming. Jentry Chau vs. the Underworld dropped onto Netflix a while back, and it is undeniably a fun watch. A show about a teen girl in Texas named Jentry, whose soul will be taken by a Mogwai, so she needs to protect herself with her fire powers. Ali Wan and Bowen Yang give great performances as Jentry and Ed. In fact, the 2 are probably the best parts of this show. I love every moment they are on screen together. And Jentry herself is a pretty compelling protagonist to follow, especially when we learn more of her struggles in accepting herself and her strained relationship with her caretaker Gugu, which is fascinating to see unfold. Though this is a series where I like its parts more than its actual whole. The romantic triangle is easily the worst part of the show, Michael's powers don't really go anywhere, the hip lingo and internet humor feels jarring and out of place with the otherwise low-key early 2000s vibe. And while I absolutely love the final 3 episodes, it did feel like the creators were hurrying up and tying up loose ends just in case they couldn't greenlight a Season 2 after episode 10, which felt more fitting as a Season 1 cap-off. Still, I can't deny that this was a lot of fun to sit through. But if anything deserves to be praised to no end about this show, it's that its intro is easily one of the best of any Western cartoon, period. Tokyo Override is another Netflix animated series that I think is pretty good that flew under people's radar. It's a great futuristic crime thriller with stellar animation and an endearing cast. However, its story is pretty weak, as in the last 2 episodes it takes a sudden left turn that makes me go, that doesn't even make any sense. But a great underrated gem of the non-anime shows this year is Dead Cells Immortalis, an adaptation of the Dead Cells game. Except maybe push adaptation a little more, because correct me if I'm wrong, but according to fans, the show initially has a much different tone and vibe unfamiliar to the games before the final 2 episodes integrate actual lore from the games to take itself seriously. And whether or not that's a good thing, it doesn't change the fact that this show is so much fun. I love the chemistry between Esposito and Flameface, as the two constantly bicker and argue with such hilarity before developing a genuinely wholesome friendship. The action and the animation are top notch, and the comedy is undeniably the series' strongest point. No joke, this is my 11th favorite show of the year. It is my highest recommendation out of anything I talk about in this video. But let's shift gears a little and talk about anime for the rest of the video. By far the most popular anime this year was Dandadan, and for good reason. It's a phenomenal evolution of the shonen genre that puts a bigger emphasis on a single relationship in the context of very brief but visually dazzling and action-packed arcs filled with references to yokai and aliens. However, it's not a personal favorite of mine because I don't know if you guys know this, but shonen anime just don't really do it for me a lot of the time. Now, this is definitely a great change of pace and a lot of fun, but given that season 1 ends without even concluding its last scene, I'd honestly say wait for season 2 to roll out before you get started with it. Maybe when the Space Globalists arc gets around to being animated, I can qualify this as a favorite. Also, content warning for the first and last episode, those parts I did not like very much. Another cultural phenomenon in the anime world that came out this year was My Dear Friend Nokotan, for wildly different reasons. I had a blast with this, with some of the most clinically insane characters in fiction and one of the best OPs of the year, which just makes me think of what if an anime had a Saturday morning cartoon-like intro. Though with this being a gag anime, you really feel when the joke doesn't land, which unfortunately happens more often as the show goes along. Still, I enjoyed tuning in to the characters chanting Shika noko 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 kosh tan tan on repeat. This was also the year I really got into Villainess anime and especially Villainess manga. And while I unfortunately didn't get to see everything like 7th Time Loop and Villainess in History, I did get to watch Dr. Elise and Villainess Level 99. Though Fluffy Paradise could also tangentially be classified as such, even though it doesn't technically star a villainess, it falls in the camp of being about an overworked office lady being reincarnated into the body of an understated royal who lives a fantastical life, only this time with fluffy animals, complete with an honestly pretty stupid and disjointed story. Dr. Elise takes a bit of a detour from your traditional villainous isekai, where the villainess, after being killed by her people, is reincarnated into the body of an orphan in modern-day Japan, where she spends the rest of her life honing her skills and redeeming herself to become a surgeon before dying again and being reincarnated back into her original body, being given a second chance to do the right thing. Elise herself is such a great and wholesome protagonist to follow, and it's especially hype whenever she gets to show off her craft and prove herself. I will say this show is definitely better when it's focused on the medical stuff rather than the romance and the political stuff, which are easily the weakest parts as per usual. But Villainess Level 99 is a show that I have more of a personal attachment to, as the core appeal of it is that the main character is so aloof and nonchalant and deadpan that it's super funny to see her awkward interactions with the people around her who cannot understand her gaming knowledge. The story itself is a little rushed at the end, but it's helped by drawing great parallels between certain characters and including a very quaint and charming romance. Speaking of romance, we might as well speedrun through a bunch of romance anime that came out this year. A Sign of Affection was among the highest rated, which I personally don't really get. I do love the angle of a deaf girl and a guy who loves to travel getting together because they both love discovering new things about each other, but for the most part it's very stock shoujo manga. Senpai is an Otokonoko was one that I was really looking forward to, and all I can really say is that while it's overall great, I don't really like the middle chunk where we deal with the love triangle BS. But I am glad we're getting a movie-length finale for it this year. Pseudo Harem was a cute show that showcased a pretty charming relationship, but it does feel like it could have been half as long. Unrelated, the magical girl and evil lieutenant used to be arch enemies was one that I thought was really cute. Though I had a better time following the other magical girl, who is literally just the fuck you guy meme, and this stupid ass cat is by far one of the worst characters of the year. I hate him so much. You Are Miss Servant was one I watched just because I read the manga, and while I really like where the manga is currently headed, I completely forgot how the first chunk of the series involved a whole lot of nothing happening. Shifting gears for a moment to Grimm Variations, while I still think its concept is great, taking 6 Grimm fairy tales and twisting them in different ways, I'd only say 3 episodes are worth watching: the Cinderella episode, the Hansel and Gretel episode, and the Town Musicians episode, which was my favorite of the 6. Tis Time for Torture Princess is a series about the worst princess of all time, going through the most tame torture methods possible. Not a lot of substance, but it's really fun to see the different quote methods of torture the demons use on her, from late night ramen to gaming to playing at the playground. Nare Nare Cheer for You is a hard one for me because it starts out amazing with a fantastic cast of characters who have amazing camaraderie before the second half instantly deflates into a typical cute girls doing cute things anime. Which is a shame because the concept of 6 girls coming together to start a YouTube channel to do cheer and improve the mental health of their community is genuinely great and has a lot of emotional potential. I'd still say this is a good show, especially with Suzuha and Anna as standout characters, and the actual cheer dances being animated well, but if you want an original female friendship story by PA Works, just watch Aquatope on White Sand. The Many Sides of Voice Actor Radio was one I completely forgot I watched, and that's because despite its intriguing and classic hook of a popular girl and lone wolf becoming partners on a radio show, the show ends up as a mix of sometimes sweet and sometimes really bland and uninteresting. It also has a plot point regarding the idol's very parasocial and creepy fan bases, where it pins the blame on the idols and not the fans, and I just felt very icky watching that. At least that happens at the beginning to make room for the sometimes charming character interactions, and the ending sort of spoke to me as an actor. But let's end this video off with Kimi ni Todoke Season 3. Kimi ni Todoke was one of the pioneers of shoujo anime in the 2000s, and even though it's soaked in the multitude of cliches that most are frustrated by, it is undeniably a very sweet and fun watch. Sawako alone is such a delight of a character and one of the best shoujo protagonists, and the relationships she shares with everyone around her are nothing short of wholesome as heck. Season 3 consists of 6-hour-long episodes where Sawako and Kazuhaya have to navigate through their new relationship, along with other characters getting closure in their new relationships. Season 1 is still probably my favorite, mainly because in Season 3 we still have to deal with the miscommunication tropes, but the characters and romantic moments are still as adorable and sweet as always. And Sawako's friendship with Ayane and Chizuru is easily the best part of the entire series as a whole. But I know there are other shows that I didn't get a chance to watch, mainly because of time, so what are your favorite shows of 2024? Now if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go back to working on my Liz and the Bluebird analysis. I'm aiming for it to come out before the Colors Within releases in theaters, but it wouldn't surprise me if it somehow comes out in February. That's my highest priority right now, so it'll probably take a while before my actual top 10 list gets here. In the meantime, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thank you for watching, and catch you next time.